Mike Elko called it a $10 million matchup. Could this decide Saturday's outcome between the Tigers and the Aggies? We'll discuss. It's Locked on LSU. Let's go.
You are Locked on LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay, let's get it. It is Locked on LSU, your team every day. I'm your host, Matt Moscona. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. We are free, available wherever you get podcasts, so please subscribe, of course, on YouTube as well. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. So, how is LSU defensively making it without Harold Perkins? Former All-SEC linebacker Derry Beckwith gives us his take. You'll hear that in just a smidge. Also, Sage Ryan met with reporters, and I loved a candid comment he made about playing safety in Blake Baker's defense. You're going to hear that coming up shortly as well. But I want to start with something that at this point should be pretty familiar for LSU fans. Seems like every week that LSU plays, we hear about a good-on-good matchup, and by now you probably know what I'm talking about. It's the LSU offensive line against whoever they're playing and their defensive line. And with full respect to a lot of the teams LSU has played, they have good defensive linemen. Good defensive linemen that are projected high NFL draft picks and pros and potential All-SEC and All-American guys. And none of them has been able to make hay against this LSU offensive line. And so when Mike Elko met with reporters this week there in College Station, he was asked point blank about his defensive front seven, which boasts some very talented players. Look, even though Walter Nolan is now in Oxford, Mississippi, I mean, you're still talking about some very talented Texas A&M defensive players, guys that are projected first-round picks. So Mike Elko made this comment when he was asked about the LSU offensive line against the Texas A&M defensive front.
No, I think it's a great matchup. I kind of joked with our guys this morning. I said, there's $10 million cash on the line this weekend. Someone's going to go get it. So if you want it, it's yours. But yeah, no, it'll be a great matchup. It'll be a lot of fun. I think that's what happens in these types of games, right? You see these high-level players on both sides of the ball for both programs that get a chance to go up and go head-to-head against each other. And so, that's certainly one. And, I think our running backs against their linebackers is another. Their wideouts. There's a lot of those types of matchups when you look at the game.
$10 million matchup. $10 million cash on the line. Who wants it? So he's not entirely wrong, by the way. CBS Sports, for example, just Wednesday released an updated mock draft. And again, mock drafts, take them for what they're worth. It's just one person's opinion. Certainly, it can be an educated opinion based on what scouts may think about a player, what position a team may be targeting, etc. But we don't even know the draft order yet, so take it for what it's worth. But CBS Sports has Will Campbell, the LSU left tackle, going 5th overall to the New York Jets. Top 5 pick. It's just incredibly impressive to see it that way. They got Nick Scorton, the defensive end, the edge from Texas A&M, going 13 to the Arizona Cardinals. Now, for what it's worth, also got Garrett Nussmeier going 19 to the Seattle Seahawks, but another story therein. But we could even obviously look at Emory Jones. We can look at a defensive lineman like Shamar Turner. I don't know if those guys will end up in round 1. There's certainly some mock drafts that have him there. But the point is, this is the kind of game where when you're going to go against an elite talent, you can make your name known. But y'all, I feel like I've seen this movie before, which is why I'm not really batting an eye. And I want to be so abundantly clear. because I know how the internet works, and there's going to be people who hear this or see this and go, Scones said LSU's offensive line is going to dominate. Don't worry about Texas A&M's defensive front seven. Didn't say that, because I think those guys are really talented players. But South Carolina had really talented players too. And all week leading up to LSU's trip to Columbia, all we heard about was Kennard and Stewart, the 5-star, and how great they were at defensive line, and Tonka Hemingway. And man, it was just going to be a huge challenge for LSU. And look, they did get home. South Carolina netted 2 sacks against LSU in that game. Like, very impressive considering. And LSU in that game scored 38 points and won on the road. Overcame a 17-point deficit because South Carolina's defense couldn't stop the LSU offense. Excuse me, it was 36. 36-33 was the final. And I feel like we heard the same thing when LSU played Ole Miss. And it was a good-on-good matchup. And we talked about guys like Walter Nolan and Centurion Perkins, and we talked about Princely Umanmielen, and we talked about J.J. Pegues. Ole Miss came into Baton Rouge leading the country in sacks and TFLs. And Ole Miss left here with no sacks and 2 TFLs. LSU, you played 4 quarters in an overtime period. They didn't get Nussmeier on the ground once. That was the team leading the country in sacks. A week ago, LSU went to Fayetteville, Arkansas, an Arkansas defensive line with a guy like Landon Jackson, who's in a lot of people's first-round mock drafts. And Arkansas had 0 sacks against LSU. Look, there was a play where Landon Jackson walloped Garrett Nussmeier. Jackson beat Will Campbell, and Nussmeier got rid of the ball, and as soon as he got rid of it, boom, he got hit by Jackson. But wasn't a sack. I guess my point is, yes, Texas A&M is a really good defensive front seven, y'all. I'm not in any way trying to argue against that. You got really good players there. I just mentioned Nick Scorton, who's a top 15 projected draft pick. Shamar Turner is a former 5-star. He's a stud. Torian York is our leading tackler. He's a linebacker. Dalton Brooks is their 3rd leading tackler. Scooby Williams, their 4th leading tackler. Those are linebackers. Those are all guys in that front seven. And they're very active, and they're very good. And Mike Elko, I have a lot of respect for. He was Brian Kelly's defensive coordinator at Notre Dame. He did so well. He left Notre Dame, took the DC job at Texas A&M. From there, got the head coaching job at Duke, now head coaching job at A&M. He is a really good football coach. Exceptional, especially on the defensive side of the ball. But so too were those guys from Ole Miss. And so too was, the defensive end from Arkansas. And so too were those guys from South Carolina. And LSU just keeps stonewalling. So I'm not saying A&M won't get home. I'm not saying that A&M defensive front seven won't win the day. What I'm saying is nobody else has. And if you do, I'll tip my hat, because you freaking earned it against that LSU offensive line. Because it's not like we're just talking about one guy. The fact of the matter is Will Campbell and Garrett Dellinger have played next to each other on the left side of the line for 3 years. Miles Frazier and Emory Jones have started next to each other on the right side of the line for 3 years. It's not like it's a 4, 5, 6 game sample size of these guys playing together. I mean, you have 40 games playing together. Yes, absolutely. DJ Chester at times has been a liability at center. He's a guy that's really tall. He gets pushed back too much. He's had snap infractions and false starts and a lot of things that make you shake your head. But that's a young guy who's finding his way. But he's flanked by 2 guys that are senior starters. Frazier's in his 5th year. Dellinger's in his 4th year. And both have been starting for 4 years now. It helps. It's why LSU's offensive line's been so good. It's why, despite the fact that the running game at time hasn't gotten going, this offense is still churned because they've kept Garrett Nussmeier upright, and he's plenty good enough to beat a lot of teams. And he may be good enough to do it again this weekend. They keep Garrett Nussmeier upright, LSU's offense is going to go. If A&M does what nobody else has been able to do and gets Nussmeier, could be a very long day for the LSU offense. But until I see somebody take the LSU offense to task and that offensive line to task, just going to have to see it to believe it. Okay, it is Locked On LSU, your team every day. From the LSU offense to the LSU defense. I am very interested in some comments that Sage Ryan made. That Sage Ryan made when, that Sage Ryan made. I lost my camera there briefly. For those who are listening, my apologies. Sage Ryan made about moving to safety. We'll get to that. It's Locked On LSU, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's at FanDuel.com. Tigers at the Aggies this weekend. A&M, a field goal favorite over LSU. If you think the Tigers can go on the road and get the win, plenty of value in getting points with this LSU team right now. And again, you can get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet at FanDuel. Get to FanDuel.com, FanDuel.com. One of the things we've talked about a lot with this LSU defense is how much they've improved here under Blake Baker. And there's a lot of different things that point to that improvement and why and how they've been able to improve. Well, a big part of that is, quite honestly, playing guys in the right position. And maybe chief among them is Sage Ryan. Sage Ryan is a guy that came to LSU out of Lafayette Christian Academy as a 5-star and someone with tremendous expectation because of that lofty recruiting ranking. Fair or unfair, it's just how it works. Same with Mason Smith a year ago. It'll be the same for Dominic McKinley. It'll be the same for Bryce Underwood and Harlan Berry and DJ Pickett and everybody else that shows on campus with that 5-star designation. When you are a 5-star, everyone expects you to show up on campus day one and be an impact guy. And for Sage Ryan, that wasn't the case. He showed up on campus, had a hamstring injury, struggled through that injury his freshman season. He's a guy that as his career played out, he played the nickel position. He played dime. Last year, out of absolute necessity, they played him at boundary corner when he is every bit a boundary corner as I am. You know, you got to be able to flip your hips, turn and run, and that's not Sage Ryan's game. But he did it because he's a team guy, which is why I've always sort of rebuffed and pushed back against the fans who have criticized Sage Ryan. It's quite honestly why I push back against fans who criticize any college athlete. You know, young people are out there trying their best. And I get it. It's high stakes. But at the same time, you're still talking about 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old young people who are trying their best to do their best. They're going to make mistakes. Anyway, Sage Ryan this year has seen a pretty dramatic alteration in his ask from Blake Baker. In the opening game against Southern Cal, Sage Ryan played 54 total snaps. 51 of the 54 came at boundary corner. Since then, he's played one snap at cornerback. One. Against Nichols, played 30 total snaps. South Carolina, 24. UCLA, 22. Remember what Brian Kelly told us? Because I'm going to illustrate this stark difference. 47 snaps against South Alabama. Remember what Brian Kelly told us? After that USC game, they essentially spent a month rolling guys in and out, trying to find who they could count on. And so we saw a lot of different looks. We saw a lot of young players. We saw Deshaun Spears at safety a lot. We saw Kylan Jackson at safety. We saw LSU roll 6 safeties out there. So find this again. Remember, Sage Ryan, 54 snaps against USC, 51 of them at corner. Then he played free safety, 30 snaps, 24 snaps against South Carolina. Against UCLA, played strong safety for 22 snaps. Then against South Alabama, back to free safety for 47 snaps. And then remember, you went into your open date, and Brian Kelly said the time for rolling players in and out is over. We got to decide who our guys are and go with them. Against Ole Miss, Sage Ryan played 86 snaps at free safety. And then against Arkansas, Tigers were on the field for 51 snaps. Sage Ryan played 44 of them at free safety. Ultimately, it is so clear they have identified who they think their best guys are and at what position. And I think that's been the biggest difference for Blake Baker's defense. And for Sage Ryan, he was asked point blank about playing safety, about playing all these different positions since he showed up on campus. And now, finally, in his last year on campus, settling in at safety and how that's gone.
Playing all those positions have helped me to play, fast and free because I know every spot on the field from corner to nickel to safety. But I'm really grounded and comfortable at safety, controlling the defense from the high end and just getting guys in order and helping them to, play fast and free too. Making the calls from the back, and I kind of feel like the quarterback on the, on the back end of the defense, the secondary. So it's a good feeling to be, where I needed to be from the beginning.
He said he's comfortable, and at the end he said where I needed to be from the beginning. Don't miss that. It's a good feeling to be where I needed to be from the beginning. Sage Ryan is a safety. He is a safety who during his time at LSU has been asked to play nickel and dime and boundary corner. Y'all, we talk about Pro Football Focus here. And like I always say, Pro Football Focus is a metric. It's not the metric. Sage Ryan, it's no coincidence. His lowest graded game of the season, USC, when he was playing boundary corner. He scored a 53 by Pro Football Focus. The next lowest grade he had all season was UCLA at 60.7. Everything else has been the upper 60s or 70s. His highest graded game of the season this past week at Arkansas when he played 44 of the 51 snaps, and all of them were at strong safety. Or excuse me, at free safety. So yeah, you finally have him in the right spot, and lo and behold, his coverage grade at safety was a 76.5. His coverage grade at boundary corner against Southern Cal was a 51.3. Yes, you don't even need to know what those numbers mean. It's just to understand that why is this defense playing so well? You finally got guys in the right position. That includes Sage Ryan. Y'all, I talked about it all during spring. Sage Ryan spent the whole spring playing safety. And I remember I was at media days and I had a one-on-one interview with Brian Kelly, and I asked him if he was sticking with Sage Ryan at safety, and he said, we haven't made that decision yet. Might look at him at corner. And ultimately, he did play a lot of corner, in part in fall camp, because Zy Alexander wasn't back. You had young guys, and you were playing USC, and you realized, man, that's Lincoln Riley. That's a veteran quarterback in Miller Moss. Do we really want to run P.J. Woodland, a true freshman, out there in the first game of his college career playing boundary corner against Southern Cal? Or do we want to go with a guy like Major Burns, who might have some limitations, but he's a veteran guy who's played the position before, and they went with the veteran? And it was okay. Not good or great, but okay. Now, with Zy Alexander back, with Ashton Stamps getting better and older, your entire secondary is better. And you're seeing, I know this probably feels repetitive for a lot of you because I say it so much, but it's not just me saying it anymore. You're seeing it, and the players and coaches are telling you now as well. This is why, in part, they were so bad a year ago, and why they've been able to dramatically improve this year. How much better can they get? That's going to be a fascinating watch for this defense the rest of the way. One other big factor is a change Blake Baker was forced to make after Harold Perkins was injured. Our guy, former All-SEC linebacker Derry Beckwith, explains what he's seen from this defense without Harold Perkins. That's next to wrap up Locked on LSU, your team every day. Pretty excited here to tell you about Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Your game all season long. You can run your game all season long on Prize Picks. So right now, you can win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. Prize Picks is the best way to get action on sports in over 30 states, of course, including California, Florida, Georgia, Texas, and Louisiana. Prize Picks is the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy, so your lineups stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. If your player leaves in the first half and doesn't return, Prize Picks keeps your lineup alive. Sign up today to get $50 instantly when you play just $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, Prize Picks discounts selected players' projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineup. So I'll be very candid with you. First Prize Picks read I've done. I downloaded the app. I am very excited to jump aboard and tell you all about my experience, and you should do what I literally just did. Download the app today. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. So it's Prize Picks. Check them out. Prize Picks. Run your game. Download the app today. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Run your game. As we come down the home stretch here, we've talked a lot of defense today. A day ago, if you weren't here on the last podcast, we talked a lot of offense, in particular the quarterback matchup with LSU and Texas A&M, with Garrett Nussmeier and Connor Wegman, and how LSU has a pretty sincere advantage under center. Today has been more about the defensive side of the ball. I do understand we talked LSU's offensive line, but the A&M defense, we talked about Sage Ryan and what he's meant for this LSU defense. And what LSU also has a lot to talk about is who they don't have, and that's Harold Perkins. And I know it's been a big conversation about Perkins and how the LSU defense has improved with Perkins not out there. But as the saying goes, sometimes correlation doesn't equal causation. I don't think LSU's defense is better because Harold Perkins is absent. I don't think you're better without an amazing player like that. What you are is different. And that also coincides with what we talked about. This coaching staff finding the right position for all these defenders. Remember, Harold's injury came amid that sort of washing machine of rotating guys to find who fit where. What if you still had Harold now with the secondary established the way they are? You're not better without him. But I had a chance to talk to Derry Beckwith, former LSU All-SEC linebacker, and I asked him what he notices, what is different as he's watching the LSU games now in this defense as to when Harold Perkins was on the field.
They're not trying to force one person to do one thing. I think with Harold Perkins, with a guy like that who has so much attention behind him, and rightfully so, he's extremely talented. And this is not a knock on Harold Perkins at all. But when you have so much attention on one guy, I think you try to force feed him so much, and you're focusing on Harold Perkins to make a play. You're focused on putting Harold Perkins in a position to make a play. And when it happens, other guys around him are just kind of stagnant and they're standing still. And so they're not able to come into themselves to play to a level that they know they're capable of playing to individually. And so that's what Blake Baker is doing. I mean, like I mentioned earlier, everybody is involved. I mean, the guy had a power eye on defense. Which
have you ever seen that?
I have never seen it in my life. I was like, okay, Blake Baker, you're showing out right now. Like, you're showing out.
Well, we did see two linebackers trip over each other on that play, by the way, in the backfield.
I did. I'm not gonna bring that up. But man, to see a power eye, and when you're creative like that, what that does, that brings joy to the game. You know how fun it is for those kids, 18, 19-year-olds, to sit in a power eye on defense and just come downhill, full steam ahead. You go this way, I go that way. So he's getting guys involved. I think last week against Ole Miss, he brought a cat blitz, which is a corner blitz. I've never seen that. I haven't seen a corner blitz since Dave Aranda, and I kid you not. So he's bringing so many different elements to this game. He's getting people involved. And so I think that's why, they're so successful right now without Harold Perkins.
Again, it's not they're successful because Harold isn't there. It's Blake Baker has found a way with these guys right now to win with the alignment he has. It would be fascinating to see what it would look like with the queen piece on the chessboard, the piece that can move in any direction and do anything. You don't have that right now in Perkins, and you also don't have Jacoby and Guillory, your best interior defensive lineman. Imagine what this defense would be if you had the luxury of those two pieces on the chessboard right now as well, in addition to what they're doing. I guess we'll have to wait and see. One thing I'll leave you with, as much as we've talked about the Texas A&M defensive front and how much they've been lauded, right now through 7 weeks, Texas A&M is 35th in the country in rush defense. The LSU defensive front, which has been lambasted, is 33rd in America in rush defense. They may not have the stars, but boy, are they playing well right now. Should be a great one Saturday night in College Station with a ton on the line. And as Mike Elko said, potentially even $10 million. All right, that'll do it for us here on today's episode of Locked On LSU. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. Now for your second listen, how about you go check out Locked On SEC with my guy Chris Gordy, LSU alum. You can find Locked On SEC on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you are listening on podcast, do us a favor, subscribe, rate us, leave a review. If you are on YouTube, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so you're notified whenever we post a new video, and let a friend know that if they love the Tigers, we got you here every single day for Locked On LSU, your team every day.